Hello, everyone. I want to check in on week three and just discuss certain aspects of what we're doing in this course. Um, I think people are doing good work, and I think people are, you know, doing the best they can. I think we've gotten off a tough week with reading Plato's Euthyphro in the sense that it might have been a little difficult to try to apply what's required by the weekly assignment to such a I wouldn't call it a wide ranging text because it is quite focused on the question of piety. But it's, as I've said in, I hope, numerous places, and in the video comments that I've been giving on people's work, it's not one long, continuous argument. It is a set of particular arguments having to do with different aspects of this question of piety, or what is the question, what is piety? So we're coming off a week I think was particularly difficult, and we're heading into texts which are much more manageable, I think, starting this week with Descartes, or the excerpt from Descartes' Meditations. But there were one or two questions, I think. I haven't really talked directly with students, but I think there might be a certain amount of puzzlement on the part of some people, and that's fine, it's understandable, especially with regard to the weekly assignment and what they should be doing with the weekly assignment. Let me just give you some words of advice as far as that goes. Just certain things to keep in mind. This is a course, and which is trying to be about reasoning. So it is about argument. And so when you are looking at the text, again, I mean, you read it through, obviously, you try to get a grasp of what it's about, what's going on. But when it comes down to doing this sort of more thorough critical reading and critical evaluation of the text, just, not always easy, as I said, to apply the what's asked for in the assignment, the weekly assignment, to a particular text. But what you're really looking for is reasoning, and what you're really trying to focus on is reasoning. So no matter what else you're doing, you're doing that. So when you write about these texts, what you're trying to keep in the forefront of your mind as your goal is that you are trying to describe or give an account of what the reasoning is in this text. And you are going to give an evaluation of that reasoning. So those are two things to really keep in mind. I think if you do keep those things in mind, you couldn't go wrong. So when you're looking at, say, this week's text from Descartes' Meditations, looking to write about it, looking to do the assignment on it, keep in mind that what you're looking for is, well, what is the reasoning that Descartes engages in this? And then what is he trying to establish through that reasoning? This does not require that you cover everything in a text. That was maybe one of the problems with the Euthyphro, is that a lot of people in their weekly assignment gave a broad overview of the entirety of the Euthyphro, which I think is a way of coping with the assignment for last week. But what they didn't give was the kind of reasoning that Socrates, and let's face it, it's mostly Socrates. It may be all Socrates who does the reasoning. Maybe there's something that Euthyphro does. I didn't give really much an account of what kind of reasoning that he engages in. So you don't want to just give a broad overview of what's said in the text. You want to focus on the reasoning, and let's remind ourselves, what reasoning is. If you just give me a moment. Sorry. Might take a moment for me to open up a Google Doc. I just want to just lay out, in a very, very schematic and formal way, what is considered to be reasoning. And you see all these other docs. Now you see all these other classes I teach: moral philosophy, engineering ethics. Uh, yeah. Sorry, Chromebook. Chromebooks are great, except they're terrible. If you have a Chromebook, you know exactly what I mean. Just waiting. Things take a long time to load in a Chromebook, but it's like $150 for a Chromebook, for a decent Chromebook. So yeah, especially if you drop it, you know, break it, you don't start crying as you would a $600 laptop. Yeah, it takes a while. Yeah, what I wanted to do is, well, just tell you what I'm going to do. I mean, what does reasoning actually consist of? Reasoning actually consists of inferences. That is, on the basis of thinking that one thing is true, making a judgment that another thing is true. Just to lay that out there, that's what I was going to do. Is that reasoning is going from what we assume that we know to be true, or think might be true, or take on the assume for the sake of argument to be true, and moving on to something else that is implied by that. That is, we make an inference. This isn't going to work. So, what you're looking for when you are reading these texts is the author actually making inferences, going from one thing to another. And those, we usually just recognize this without noting, oh, he's making an inference or she's making an inference. We just sort of see, well, that's that they're reasoning there. It's obvious that they're putting together an argument there. But the building blocks of geez, the building blocks of arguments are inferences. A is true, so B must be true, and if B is true, then maybe C is true, or and so on and so on and so on. I mean, that's what we actually do to create arguments is make these inferences. So I won't be able to find. I'm sorry about that. So I'm just it doesn't even matter. But we all have the ability to recognize when reasoning is being done. But you should have that kind of in your in your tool in your toolbox. That sense that, well, what does reasoning consist of? It really does consist of inferences, and inferences have to do with recognizing implications. What is an inference? An inference is when, on the basis of, again, sorry about the delay. I got to get a real grown-up laptop at some point, but I love the Chromebook because if you drop it, it's not a big deal. Let's just say statement A is true. So that's an inference. What that is, I've made a judgment. An inference is a judgment that somebody makes. An inference is a judgment that somebody makes to the effect that if one thing is true, then this other thing must be true as well, or might be true, or is suggested, or is probably true. There's all sorts of different modalities, right? Let's take a little argument from the Euthyphro as an example. It goes something like this. There's something that Socrates more or less says to Euthyphro. a little bit of reasoning. I mean, I think you can reconstruct it. That's not exactly how it goes in the dialogue, but it's pretty close. Euthyphro has said that the pious is what is loved by the gods. He's also said that the gods disagree about what they love, that they get into these conflicts. And so, what we can infer on the basis of those two statements is that some things are both loved and not loved by the gods. And what that would imply is that some things are both pious and not pious. And the sort of the unstated overall conclusion is that is absurd. That can't be. That something can't be both pious and not pious at the same time, which means that Socrates says we have to go back and re-examine these premises that Euthyphro has established because they lead to absurd conclusions. They lead to things which are obviously false, so we need to re-examine whether or not those premises are actually true, because reasoning from those premises gets us into severe logical difficulties. That is just a brief example of, okay, this is reasoning. There's reasoning going on here. This is what I should be focusing on. Maybe I can't focus on all the reasoning in a short assignment, in a 2-page assignment, but I'm going to focus on some reasoning. And I'm going to establish thereby, by focusing on this reasoning in specifics, I'm going to establish something in the second part of the assignment that I can do in terms of a good critical evaluation because I've got something specific. I've got a specific argument to focus on. So not the easiest thing in the world to do with real world arguments in terms of the kind of text that we actually get in the real world as opposed to reconstructions like this. But what you should have in mind, I think. So I think that when you are doing the weekly assignment, you should keep that in mind, that this is an assignment about reasoning because this is a course about reasoning. So what I should, my general idea is that what I should be focusing on here is reasoning. Now, in some cases, I think it's quite clear what the overall conclusion of the text is and what the reasoning is that supports it. In some cases, it's not so clear, admittedly, in something like the Euthyphro, but that's okay, I think. Because what you want to keep in mind is this general idea. This course is about reasoning. We are looking at these texts in light of the kind of reasoning they present. And so that's what I should be looking for, and that's what I should be focusing on in my weekly assignment.